Good evening and welcome to Music Today. This is Keitaro Harada. The concept of the show is to bring in an artist each episode and have a conversation with the artist about a performance we will all watch and listen together. The live component is very important because I encourage all the viewers to comment and ask questions to the artist. Please don't be shy, and even if it's a simple hello, that will be highly appreciated. The idea of doing this show came about when COVID-19 hit, and I wanted a platform to keep the music going for our fans. Even though we may not be able to experience live music together right now, I wanted a place where music fans can join easily and to converse with artists and see the more personal side of us. Music Today is a bilingual show, and the live streams during your evening is usually in English, and the shows that broadcast during your morning time is in Japanese for the fans in Japan. If you want to improve on your Japanese skills, you're more than welcome to watch Japanese interviews too. After the live stream, you can click on the subtitle button somewhere around here, listen in Japanese, and read it in English. Today marks show number 57 or 56. Been doing twice a day, and it's been super fun to have wonderful guests join us every day. Without further ado, I'd like to bring in our guest for tonight. Since we on this side cannot hear you applaud, please do me a huge favor and use the comment screen at the bottom to put some clapping emojis, or you can write clap, 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 or you can even just say a simple hi or a smiley face. Will be super appreciated. So please welcome our special guest, Milena Pajaro-van de Stadt. Hi, Milena.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you? I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
Very well. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Where are you quarantining right now?
I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
I've been here longer than ever, since February 29th.
Yeah, quite the difference from all the traveling you've been doing with the quartet, and all of a sudden it's a hard stop and being at home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for our viewers, I want to share just a little bit about Milena and I. I actually know Milena's mother more than Milena because her mom was on the board of the Phoenix Youth Symphony when I was the music director there, and was a huge patron of the arts. And through her mother, and her sister, who was in my youth orchestra playing concertmaster, I got to know Milena, and it's just been a wonderful family that I always have had just tremendous fun and joy spending time. So I really treasure the friendship and the love that I have with your family.
Well, that feeling I know for a fact is mutual. So thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
kind of you.
Excellent. Well, before we start, we have some hellos from Conrad Thomas. Thank you, Conrad. And a little hello from Japan. Thank you. Let's talk about Brahms Sonata for Viola and Piano, number 2. Tell us a little bit about this music.
Well, Brahms actually originally wrote the 2 sonatas for clarinet. They're quite late, as you can see, opus 120. And actually, like many composers, towards the end of his life, he became very enamored with the sound of the viola. For Brahms, it was clarinet and viola. He gravitated towards the clarinet quintet, the sonatas. Then he transcribed them himself for viola. And I think that there's so much to be gained from both versions, from both instrumentations of the same 2 works. The purity of the clarinet sound, as opposed to the really kind of woody, vocal, gutsy quality of the viola sound, the dark, woody, mellow timbre. They're just fantastically beautiful pieces and endlessly satisfying to perform.
Do you feel like when you're playing chamber music with a clarinetist that there's something that you can kind of relate to because of the timbre and sort of the same tessitura sound?
Yeah, for the range of the sound. I do feel that violists and clarinetists are kindred spirits in that way, for sure. And the kind of I don't know. Even though the clarinet has such a pure sound, there's a husky quality.
Yes.
That the voice is very similar, despite the fact that one's a wind instrument, one's a string instrument. So yeah, absolutely.
That's okay. And then, for this Opus 120 is really late in his career. It's one of the last chamber music that he wrote. And what I appreciate about the viola and the piano version is the fact that it's actually was done by Brahms and not by someone else, that he himself made the alterations to fit perfectly for the viola, which is nice, because oftentimes, we get arrangements, done by someone else, which is also very nice, but it's much better if it came straight from the composer.
Yeah. Yes, we violas feel quite validated by that. This isn't something we stole. This was Brahms' idea in the first place.
Exactly. It's one of the ones that you could be like, he wrote this, not someone else. Yes. I want to play just a little bit of the beginning. Where is this performance from?
This is from Baltimore, a music festival in Baltimore. That was actually the pianist I'm playing with in this video, Asia Koropanova, was is the director of that festival.
We also have some hellos from Allison Goodman. Yay!
Hi, Allie. Good to see you.
Wonderful viola. And Yoshiko Kawamoto, one of the most prolific violists in Japan.
Wow, honor. I don't do all the same octaves that Brahms did in the viola part.
Oh, really?
When I play it. Yeah, that last little phrase I did up in the clarinet, the original octave for the clarinet. I kind of did my own hybrid arrangement or transcription of it.
I think the beautiful way you perform the Brahms will appreciate and approve.
Thank you.
There is, however, a lot of music for viola by Brahms, through the chamber music and through symphonies and etc.
Even viola quintets, which Mozart was the one who started that basically chamber music genre of the viola quintet, two violas in one group. But Brahms really took to it, and those viola quintets are some of the best works. Some of my favorite pieces by Brahms.
Of the romantic composers out there, how does playing Brahms feel to you? What is it that attracts you about his musical writing, especially when it comes to viola playing?
Yeah, well, it feels very human and very soulful. And I don't want to say earthbound it sounds like a negative adjective, but earthy, like it feels very grounded and very palpable emotionally. And it feels like you can always relate to it at every moment. And certain composers write incredibly gorgeous music that feels a little bit more ethereal in a way. And I feel like Brahms is just so earnest and so real and just palpable is the easiest adjective I can think of right now. Yeah. I wish I could talk to him. Wish he were around so I could ask him why he changed some of the octaves that he did in this particular sonata, but in both of them, because there are certain places I wonder whether it was just, sometimes playing very high up on the viola can sound strained, and that might not be the character that he was going for. But then some of the places he changed the voice leading as a result. Or in the F minor sonata, there's a place where the recap of the first movement where the octave is completely different, and so it just feels totally different to play the viola version or the clarinet version. So I kind of went through, and there are certain key moments where I just felt that the voice leading, the original voice leading in the clarinet part was just even more satisfying. And so I would take the viola part up an octave or something like that. But then other places in the viola version, he'll add double stops and stuff which a clarinet could never have done.
Right.
So that's really satisfying to know that he was actually capitalizing on the fact that it was string arrangement.
The viola version was done in 1895. Was there a little bit of a difference in the viola itself back then compared to now?
Well, I mean, in general, it wasn't as soloistic an instrument anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that the assumption would have been that a lot of very virtuosic stuff wouldn't have been very typical.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I have noticed with the two sonatas that they're, in general, he tends to put a lot of things down the octave or seem a little bit more simple, which is why I like to. Now, I mean, nowadays also violas are just the most varied of all the string instruments. In terms of shape and size and timbre and sonority. So even I think if I had been playing this on a different viola, like the viola I'm playing in this video, is not that large. It's quite wide looking. It looks like a big viola, but it's not that long.
Oh, I see.
And so I can get up and down the instrument quite easily, as opposed to playing on a 17-inch viola, for instance.
I see.
I always like to use the metaphor that violins and cellos are like cats and violas are like dogs, because violins and cellos, sure, they all kind of look different and they all sound different, but in general, they're all basically the same shape and size. You can tell they're all the same animal, but dogs, you can have everything from a toy poodle to a Great Dane, right? So I think violas are basically the same. That you just the variety of the actual physical instrument is so vast.
You're so right about that, though, because there are just so many viola, like just so many different types.
And there are actually different classifications of viola, sound-wise, what they were meant to be. Like there are alto violas, there are tenor violas, that actually were supposed to sound bassier or supposed to sound more like towards the treble range. Just the timbre of the instrument, just so drastically different, but it's the same instrument.
Oh, interesting. Tell us about the instrument that you're playing. This one.
The one in this video is, I love that I get to perform on a viola that was made by a woman who lives in Tucson, Arizona. Her name's Gabrielle Kundert.
Oh.
Yeah, and this viola that I'm playing on in the video is a copy of the Primrose Amati, which one of my viola teachers actually plays on. Roberto Diaz plays on that Amati, the Primrose, the one that William Primrose played on. And Gabrielle made this viola that I'm playing in the video. She made it for Roberto as a copy of his instrument. And while I was studying with him, he loaned it to me very generously. And then eventually I ended up getting to buy it and have it be my own instrument. He has another Kundert now. She made another copy of the same Amati that he also has. But it's really special, very sentimental to me, because on the inside of that viola, it says "Made for Roberto Diaz." So I have a little bit of my teacher with me all the time. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yay, bravo.
Thank you. Oh, good memories.
Fantastic.
Ooh, I still had dyed hair back then.
So is it the quarantine hair now?
Yeah, this is just, all natural.
Amazing. How old is that viola that you're playing then? If it was made for
Roberto.
That
one was made in 2004, so not very old.
Still 16 years old. How long did Roberto have it then?
He must have only had it for a few, maybe 3-4 years. I started playing it. I think I started playing it in about 2008 as a student at Curtis. So yeah, he must have had it for maybe 4 years before I started playing on it.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk a little bit more about how the viola came about to, your life. So tell us a little bit about how you were introduced to music and then what the turning point in your career was to choose this viola career route.
Well, neither of my parents are professional musicians. Both are music lovers. My dad in particular, he grew up playing piano. And both of my parents, I'm the oldest of 4. I mean, you know that, but for the audience, I'm the oldest of 4.
For sure.
Both of my parents, they thought that just having music be a part of their children's lives would be a very fulfilling and enriching addition. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there we all are. No, Stefan doesn't look too happy in that picture. It's pretty funny.
No.
We probably were playing out of tune or something.
I love that. I love that your dad's playing piano. And where
Yeah.
where is
This
this? In
photo, I
Florida?
believe, no, I believe this photo is from the one year when I was in fourth grade when we lived in England. We did live in England for a couple years when I was much younger.
Mm.
But in fourth grade, we moved back to England. My dad was doing a fellowship at a hospital. He's a heart
Mm-hmm.
surgeon, and he was doing a fellowship at a hospital outside of London, in a town outside of
Mm-hmm.
London called called Harefield. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe this photo is from our place in Harefield, England.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic.
And yeah, so and I actually started playing violin. So my dad, to rewind a little bit. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
look, it's my mom saying hi.
Hi. Hi, Dominique.
um, a few, so right at the beginning, when I was probably, I don't know, 3, 4 years old, very, very
Mm-hmm.
little, my dad would give me piano lessons.
I see.
And according to my parents, I said something to the effect of, uh, I just want to play something you can't teach me. Like I got all stubborn. And I said, I wanted to play an instrument, but I didn't want my dad to be able to tell me what to do or something like that.
Sure.
So they said, you know what? You can choose an instrument. And
Hmm.
at this time, we were living in Oxford, England.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mom told me we were walking through a park and I saw someone busking, someone playing violin out in the park. And
Mm-hmm.
I told her that's the instrument that I want to play. So they very generously and enthusiastically got me my first little violin, and I started Suzuki violin classes in Oxford.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that. Oh, hi, Philip.
We had on the show on the Japanese side, we've had guests who were who were with Mr. Suzuki and toured with the first generation of they were called the Suzuki children.
Really?
One is a violinist named Kyoko Takezawa who
Mm-hmm.
won the Indianapolis and juries for the competition, but she was one of the first handpicked, Suzuki people, and then now chairs the Suzuki Foundation in Japan. So she moved back from Paris to Tokyo, and then she runs the Suzuki method. So very, very, much an important aspect of
Yeah.
Japan's string training. So
Mm-hmm.
you started off as a violinist, then violin player.
Yes. Yep, that's me in Oxford, England. As a
Super
4.5
cute.
or maybe almost 5-year-old, just
And then
starting. My sponge is bigger than the violin, it looks like.
it is bigger. And then we have this cuteness video from, how old are you here?
I think I'm probably about 6 years old in this one. Approaching 7. Yeah, 6 or 7. Eyes darting around the room. Yeah, so there's my dad playing piano.
Is dad playing piano? Good.
Yeah, that's my dad. And then some other family friends and family. That's my uncle. And my little brother is there. So yeah, there's Stefan, my little brother.
Stefan's just not interested in your in your playing.
No, there are
at all.
more riveting things going on.
Yeah.
I love how little kids will bow before they're finished even playing. Like you just start to bow.
tell us how viola comes into play through all of this.
Okay, so violin was my primary instrument for a long time, although I did kind of phase piano back into my regular lessons. I think when I was about 7 years old or so, my violin teacher stressed the importance of having piano skills as a string player. And so I went back to taking piano lessons, not from my dad, but I had regular piano lessons. And then I think it just turned into like music, just instruments in general became a hobby for me, like a passion, just finding different voices, hearing different sounds coming out that I was producing. And in fourth grade, my school had an orchestra, and most of those kids who didn't play instruments, hi Flavia, most of the students who didn't play instruments um, would just be picking something up for the first time. And I thought to myself, I want to pick something up for the first time. That sounds exciting. So in
Yeah.
fourth grade, for a year or so, I played cello in my school orchestra just for
Okay.
fun because I wanted to start from scratch. And then in sixth grade, we moved to Florida when I was 10 years old. And my school didn't have a string program or an orchestra of any kind. They had a band. So I joined the band because I wanted to do something musical with the school, and I chose to play the trombone.
No
And I actually
kidding.
still have my trombone, and I was quite serious. Jazz band, youth symphony. I took weekly private lessons
I
on
had no
trombone.
idea you.
I
Wow.
I kept it a secret my first year at Curtis until the holiday party,
Uh-huh.
and in the skit night, because every year Curtis has a kind of traditional skit night, holiday party, talent
Okay.
show type of extravaganza. It's really, really fun. And in one of the skits, I came out and played trombone, and no one knew that I played, except for a few people, because I had been taking
Uh-huh.
lessons with one of the Curtis students to
Oh, I
keep up
see. I
my
see.
chops.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so then I played trombone, and I kind of consider trombone my gateway to the viola because
Mm-hmm.
it was like I just felt completely in love with the deeper,
Mm.
rich lower tones.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the reasons I chose trombone was that for a wind instrument, it felt the closest to a string in the sense that you didn't have valves or frets, like you could
That
slide
is so
around, you could really
true.
manipulate the intonation like to the
Mm-hmm.
exact degree.
I've
Um,
never heard it described that way, but I think that description only comes from someone who plays a string in a brass instrument, which is like very rare. I don't know
mhm.
any other person who plays viola and trombone. So,
I've met a few other violists who play like that's the weirdest thing is that it's been very eerie. I've met a couple
mm,
other violists who also for some reason happened to play trombone as their band instrument.
okay.
But that's cool.
Wow.
I feel like there's something there. There's some connection.
I'm learning
But
something new
anyway,
today. Yeah.
anyway, so in high school, I mean, I always considered violin my primary
Mm-hmm.
instrument, but
Mm-hmm.
at that point in high school, I was playing violin,
Mm-hmm.
trombone. There's me with my violin teacher, Melissa Barrett, in high school. Um, playing violin, trombone, piano, taking private lessons on all
Mm-hmm.
three instruments. And my younger brother,
Mm-hmm.
Adrian, not the one in the video who was not
Mm-hmm.
listening to me play, but Adrian was
Mm-hmm.
a cellist. And that's us at my wedding in June 2018. I can't believe it was already over 2 years ago. Um, and he played cello, and two
Mm-hmm.
friends of ours from the youth symphony, sisters, played
Mm-hmm.
violin. We were all in the same high school, this high
Mm-hmm.
school that had no string program, and we thought, actually, my homeroom teacher at that high school, who was also the theory teacher and the choir director at the high school, Lynn Radcliffe, she thought it would be a great idea to have a school string quartet if we didn't have an orchestra. So
I
we
see.
decided to create a quartet, the four of us. And I actually just volunteered to play viola because it sounded so exciting to get to try a new sound. While I had been in band playing trombone, there was actually
Mm-hmm.
a few months of time where I brought a bassoon home because there was one piece we were playing in band that had a bassoon part that was kind of important, and we
Mm-hmm.
had no bassoon players. So the director asked if I would be willing to learn a few notes on the bassoon. So I did, and it just became my hobby, just hearing different sounds coming out. And so I told the other kids, I said, can I try the viola? Can I be the one
Mm-hmm.
who I
Mm-hmm.
volunteer? And so Lynn ordered a viola for the school, basically for me to play because we were the only four, and we were making this quartet.
Mm-hmm.
And our school was Episcopal High School, and the mascot was the eagle. So we were the
Okay.
Eagle Quartet.
Very nice.
And that was my first real, I guess, string quartet experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it was both. It was the combination of playing the viola and playing it in a string quartet, that repertoire. I think the first piece we played was Schubert Rosamunde Quartet, the A minor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that made me both fall in love with the viola and its
Mm-hmm.
unique voice and its unique role, and fall in love with string quartets.
I see.
And I hadn't really considered that seriously pursuing a strictly professional career as a musician, even though music was the biggest part of my life. I
Mm-hmm.
always kind of had my head in a lot of different places, and I kind of
Mm-hmm.
wanted to keep my options open, and I didn't really consider it. And when I started playing viola in that quartet, I remember I also started listening to a lot of quartet recordings,
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, this is like the most fun thing ever, and people can actually do it as a job.
What quartet were you listening
Actually,
to?
one of the quartets I listened to the most was the Tokyo Quartet.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah,
I have lots
yeah,
of recordings of them. It's very good.
yeah. I
Very
remember
recording.
listening to them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Tokyo Quartet, Emerson Quartet, Guarneri Quartet.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Um, yeah, the Tokyo was like one of the first one that I can remember listening to. But
Mm-hmm.
it just and then there are certain pieces like Brahms' third quartet, the B flat.
Mm-hmm.
That third movement of that piece is a massive viola solo. All the other instruments
Yes.
put their mutes on except the
Yeah.
viola. It's like a viola's dream, right? Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
muted and you just although that's kind of misleading because the whole reason that I love the viola and love its role in the quartet is precisely because it's such a chameleon that you can
Mm-hmm.
totally blend into the texture, you can really flavor the chords and the harmonies,
Mm-hmm.
but then when it's your time to come out, when there's a viola solo or a viola moment of some kind, it has such a unique soulful quality or such a
Mm-hmm.
different color. And your ear gets so used to hearing the first violin on top the whole time
Mm-hmm.
that when the viola comes out, it stands out. And so I really loved that quality. I loved not always being on top and kind of like moving in and out like that, and then having these like
Mm-hmm.
very special, poignant moments as the violist. But regardless, that Brahms quartet,
Mm-hmm.
when I heard that movement, I was like, the viola is the best instrument ever. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like it. It just sounds so different. It sounds so husky and sounds so
Mm-hmm.
human and soulful. And every violist I heard, kind of like we were talking about the cats and dogs thing, like
Yeah.
every viola just sounded so different from the other one. And I had this
Mm-hmm.
fascination with trying different instruments, and I had finally found an instrument that was always a different one, no matter which one you played.
It's interesting that you say the way you described it as a chameleon because it really is true. Viola has that function of, the joy of harmony making, but also so important and unique when it comes to being a melody too. It's just
Mm-hmm.
no other. It's unlike other string instrument. It had the tone quality, and plus we're, the general public, the listeners and lovers of music who don't know music, didn't get the training. They're so used to the violin as a solo. They're so used to the cello as a solo
Mm-hmm.
sound. But when that viola comes out of the texture, it's eye-opening. It really
Mm-hmm.
is. Wonderful. It's kind of surprising that listening to your upbringing that you didn't become a conductor.
It's funny because did get asked that even growing up when I was already trying lots of different instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time where I wrote a piece. It was
Mm-hmm.
more an arrangement. I called it Cellphone Suite, and it was kind
Okay.
of like at the time where cell phones became
Uh-huh.
really, much more a part of our daily lives and daily culture.
Mm-hmm.
Just being able to, when texting started happening and stuff, and there were all
The
these like,
flip phone
yeah,
phones,
the razors
the
and
razor.
that
Yeah.
Motorola, I think.
Yeah, the
But
phones that never break, right? Like
yeah,
the phones nowadays,
exactly.
it breaks very easily, but back then it's like a rock.
Yeah, but cell
Yeah.
phone. So back then there were a lot of really famous cell phone rings,
Yes.
and one
Yes.
of them was the da 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 da. Remember that
Mm-hmm.
one? Yeah.
Yes.
So I basically made a piece for my
Mm-hmm.
high school band that was a medley of all these different cell phone rings, and I harmonized them, and I
Mm-hmm.
made theme and variations with them and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and I conducted it. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I felt like there was just like I could totally see why, especially with my upbringing and the different instruments and stuff, that it would kind of make sense to think about being a conductor. But there was just something about, at least back then, like I'm definitely a control freak, like complete control freak. And I feel like, sure, that does make sense if you're a conductor to be
Mm-hmm.
one. But for me, that seemed daunting. It felt like there
Mm.
are all these people, I can't control them. I'm gonna be like frustrated or freaking out about if I can just control my own individual sound, like that feels like I feel more in control or something. I don't know. But then I fell in love with viola, and it wasn't like I was thinking between conducting and viola. I just stopped thinking about it.
Right. We have more hellos from Deborah Price.
Oh,
Thank you.
hi.
Hi, Deborah. And then tell us a little bit about this photo.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I absolutely love this photo. So on the left, you have Sergio Schwartz, who
Mm-hmm.
was my other violin teacher during my high school years.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to travel quite far. I was living in Jacksonville, Florida, and my mom would do these marathon weekends where she would drive me all the way to Boca Raton, which is about 4.5 hours. Sometimes we
Mhm.
would fly, um,
Mhm.
pretty much every other week to go
Mhm.
study with him. And I met him. I met him when he was on the jury of a competition that I did as a 13-year-old.
Mhm.
And he was just such an incredible teacher. He cares about his students so much, and just basically became like family, very much like Melissa, my violin teacher, who
Mhm.
was in Jacksonville, and who I just actually spoke on the phone with today. Um,
Fantastic.
but so Sergio Schwartz is the one on the left, and
Uh-huh.
then next to him is Roberto Diaz, who's the president of Curtis, the
Mhm.
one for whom that viola was made.
Mhm.
And he was my teacher all throughout my time at Curtis.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then all the way on the right of the photo is Michael Klotz.
Mhm.
And I met because of Sergio, actually. I followed Sergio to the Bowdoin International Music Festival. I think my
Mhm.
first summer there, I went there for about 6 summers or something. It became my
Mhm.
home away from home
Mhm.
in Brunswick, Maine. And Sergio Schwartz taught there every single summer. So I followed him there to be his student, his violin student. I think my first summer there would have been maybe 2004 or something, I think.
Mhm.
And so that was I graduated high school in 2006.
Mhm.
That was towards the time that I started playing viola or started dabbling in viola. I think it was my second summer at Bowdoin. I brought my first ever viola, the one that Lynn had ordered to my high school, and
Mhm.
I brought that to um, to Bowdoin just for fun because, as I said, I fell in love with just the feeling of playing viola in a chamber group, and so I
Mhm.
wanted to be able to play more chamber music on viola. And it's so funny because Bowdoin they had this uh, chamber music placement audition at the
Okay.
beginning of the festival. So each student, oh, you're already admitted to the festival, you're there. And the
Yeah.
first week, every student goes in and plays for the faculty on their instrument, a kind of a placement audition, um, which is the way that the faculty would put you in different chamber groups with other students. So they kind of assess your
Mhm.
level and your compatibility with different students. And so I went in and did my violin chamber music placement audition, like I always had
Mhm.
to, and I played the first movement of the Bach D minor partita.
Mhm.
And then maybe an hour later, I went back into the same room with my viola and I played it a fifth down. And then Michael Klotz was in there because he was on the viola faculty at
Yeah.
Bowdoin that summer. And he came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, who's your viola teacher?" And I said, "Oh, no, I don't have one. I'm just playing viola for fun, in chamber music. I didn't really
Mhm.
think about taking lessons. I just, want to play chamber music because it's so fun." He said, "You should play for me sometime." Turns out he was based in Miami, which is not that far from Boca Raton.
Yeah.
And I just loved playing viola for him. I felt so inspired by him. And he used to tell me when I told him, "Oh, I'm just playing viola for fun in chamber music," he would say, um, he said something. The first thing he said was, "Oh, chamber music is all about the viola."
Mm.
And I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I feel that. I really feel that." And so I started taking lessons with him at Bowdoin.
Mhm.
One really special thing about Sergio is that some teachers can be, I don't want to say possessive in a negative way, but, very careful about who their students play for because
Sure.
they want to be able to have control, especially if you're the main private teacher, you have control of their development and their
Mhm.
progress and their, milestones, just to make sure. I mean, even in just the sense, like, technically, that things don't get out of hand if you're really
Mhm.
focusing on one thing, right? But Sergio was so supportive of my playing for other people and my trying viola.
Mhm.
And so it ended up that all of those weekends that my mom and I would go down to Boca Raton for my violin lessons with
Mhm.
Sergio, we would also make a stop in Miami so I could play for Michael.
Mm.
And I remember Michael was he's definitely the one who inspired me to switch to viola, or to think that that was a possibility for me. He plays in a quartet, actually. He plays in the Amernay String Quartet, and they're based in
Mhm.
Miami, and they teach at FIU, Florida International University.
How much of violin playing do you do now?
I do it for fun. I call myself
Okay.
a closet second violinist because whenever I'm having a chamber music reading party with
Uh-huh.
anyone, I always beg one of the violinists to switch with me so I can play second violin for a while. It's
which is
really
kind
fun.
of
I still have
it's
my
a
violin.
it's a full circle, isn't it? Because you started viola because it was fun. Now you play violin because it's fun.
Fun, yeah. Well, they're all fun. They're all
There.
fun. But
Tell.
having played viola for so long, I do think
Uh-huh.
it really helped my violin playing, helped my
Mm-hmm.
sound production. It
Mm-hmm.
definitely helped things feel easier,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of just like, especially the left hand. Actually, I find switching from viola to violin is so fun and easy for my left hand, but kind of confusing for my right hand, for
Why
my
is
my
that?
bow. Well, with the violin being smaller, it's
Mm-hmm.
closer, like the sound point is closer to you. I feel like with viola, I have gotten so used to this kind of comfortable distance away from my face,
I
where
see.
my
I see.
elbow is kind of like this. But with the
Yeah.
violin, when it's closer, I feel like I almost don't even know what to do with all this extra, like, elbow bendiness.
Tell us a little bit
That's the
about this.
technical
Yeah.
term.
Tell us a little bit about this photo.
Oh, that photo makes me very happy. That's my quartet and I were playing actually in Savannah. That's at the
Mm.
Savannah Music Festival. We were playing a viola quintet with my other teacher from Curtis, Michael Tree, who was
Mm-hmm.
the founding violist of the Guarneri Quartet.
Mm-hmm.
And that is me playing with him. And definitely look, yeah, there. That's me with him after one, probably after that. That was also in Savannah. Yeah, that was after a concert we played together in Savannah. Yeah, he was, man, he was such a special teacher, special person.
I was very excited when, now I live in Savannah. So when I saw the announcement of the Savannah Music Festival for 2020 to see the Dover Quartet there, and I thought, oh yeah, get to hang out with you guys, and then
Yeah, I know.
that went
That
away.
was that was heartbreaking. Oh, that's at
Yeah.
Marlboro.
Hmm.
That's me and Michael Tree hugging in the dining room at Marlboro.
Do you have like a pre-performance ritual or routine that you do before every performance?
That's a really good question. My ritual is vehemently not having one. Like, I think I mentioned earlier, I'm a control freak.
Right. I was going to say that's why, because since you said that you're a control
Yeah,
freak, I thought
so
maybe you have to have some kind of a ritual.
that's the thing, especially now that with the quartet, I mean, up
Uh-huh.
until the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
that we're so on the road so much and performing so frequently, you have no control over your situation to a certain degree. You just don't, like, you don't know what the dressing room situation is going to be. You don't know
Mm.
how much, what types of snacks you might be able to have. You don't know how much
Mm-hmm.
time you're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to have a specific ritual, because I know myself, if I do have that, and then for whatever reason, in any weird situation, it can't happen, I
Mm-hmm.
will lose it. So my thing is no ritual. The only thing I really like is to not be hungry.
Okay.
So I'll just eat something. And I would much rather I know I'm in the minority here because a lot of people just can't eat before they play or
That's
before they perform. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I mean,
can't eat.
it makes sense. And I know people feel like laden or sleepy,
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes people are just not hungry before they play because they're in that energy or in that zone. But for me, I would much rather be a little too sleepy and a little too full and just go
Mm-hmm.
on stage and sit down and feel relaxed and play in a food coma. I would rather be in a food coma than I would be really hungry and
Hungry.
thinking
Uh-huh.
about my stomach grumbling or feeling like, when I'm hungry, I feel a little bit more on edge. Like, I would much rather the other way. The ideal situation, which again, I hate to say that because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to be like,
Mm-hmm.
stuck on something, but
Yeah.
the ideal situation would be to just be satiated when I go on stage. So
Yeah.
I usually will have a snack, or I'll have a meal maybe an hour and a half before the
Mm-hmm.
concert or something like that, like a full meal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, but other than that, man, I can't. If I had a ritual, it would just be so traumatic for me not to be able to uphold the ritual.
Tell us a little bit about the Dover Quartet, which is, main part of your musical activity right now. How it came about, and then why you just enjoy being with the ensemble.
Well, after I fell in love with playing viola and playing in string quartets, and I realized that that was something people did for a living,
Mm-hmm.
I had this goal. When I went to conservatory, when I went to Curtis, I was like, I'm gonna find my quartet here. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want. I want to be in a quartet. That's what I'm gonna do. And so from the very beginning, I was playing in a lot of different chamber groups, but I happened to be playing with this cellist, Camden Shaw. He and I entered Curtis at the same time
Mm-hmm.
as one another in 2006. and we just clicked. And it's really interesting to me when I think back, like, why did we love playing together so much? And I think the biggest reason, aside from the fact that we loved each other's playing, and I thought he was just an incredible cellist, aside from that, when we played together, we would like disagree all the time, and we would argue and explain our points, and we never got upset with each other, and it felt like we were just growing the whole, like, we were in this situation. I mean, look, we've been in the quartet now together for about 11 years, which means we've been playing together for easily 13 years, like him and I. So, you know, sure, well, you know, we'll get a little heated now and again, but back then, the thing that really stuck out to me, that really showed that we wanted to play together, was it was just so rewarding to be working with someone who I could just constantly discuss things with, and we didn't always agree on everything, and that was a good thing. And we had respect for one another, and that allowed us to be able to, you know, tap into so many more things than we would have had we always agreed on everything or gotten upset when we disagreed about things. So it really helped us keep our minds open. Brian and Joel, the two violinists, they had entered Curtis the year before us, and they were already in a quartet together. And as a matter of fact, the cellist in their original quartet at Curtis was Brooks Speltz, the cellist of the Asher Quartet, who is my husband.
Yeah.
And he's saying hello. He's over there.
Oh.
So Brooke and Phil, their violists, their original quartet at Curtis, graduated Curtis after 4 years. And Brian and Joel were staying on. They actually entered Curtis quite young, like during their last years of high school.
I see.
And Cannon and I had admired them from afar for a while, because that quartet was awesome. And the two of those two violinists sounded amazing together. And so one day, the school was doing a project, a second Viennese school project, and they wanted a quartet to play Alban Berg, Opus 3. And I absolutely love that piece. I just happened to have randomly played it at a festival just before. And so I told Camden, like, we have to play this piece. It's such an amazing piece. Let's ask Joel and Brian to play it with us. And so we worked on that piece. That was the first thing we performed together. And it just, when we started playing together, it just felt like it clicked. And it's very much like a relationship, you know, like when you're dating someone, where if both people are thinking, oh my gosh, they might be the one, you're like almost like too shy to say it. And we had to have the relationship talk. And we also had a coach, Shmuel Ashkenazi, who was the first violinist of the Vermeer Quartet. And in one of our coachings with him, we looked up to him so much, idolized him. And he was also our harshest coach. Like, he would sit there in the coachings and say things like, well, either you can't hear, either you have no idea what's in a score, or you just don't care about balance. Or you would say those things.
Just straight up. Yeah.
We care. We care. But in one of our coachings with him, he said, you know, you guys sound good. Have you ever considered getting married? And that was like, hearing that from him was the most inspiring thing, and very meaningful. And we very shortly thereafter had what we call the relationship talk, where we're like, is this just a fling? Like, is it just for school, or do you want to be long term? You know, that kind of thing.
Tell me how the name came about.
Okay. So we've gone through a lot of different names. That's maybe one of the most difficult things about creating a string quartet, is coming up with a name that everyone's okay with.
What were some of the renditions of different names that you went through?
So the longest name, like the name that we had for the longest before Dover, was the Old City String Quartet.
The Old City?
Old City.
Because of Philadelphia?
Because of Philadelphia, but people didn't really, like, that was a very confusing name to people. They also didn't know if we were like a jazz group, or like, they couldn't really tell what we were really going for with that name. And it was very long. It took a long time.
Old City String Quartet.
I remember we played a concert once where we were still under that name, and the presenter announced, and now the Old String City Quartet. So we realized it was a little bit of a confusing name, a little cumbersome. So, but the reason we picked it, as you said, was because of Philadelphia, and we wanted a name that would reflect kind of our birthplace as a group. And that was Curtis. So it just so happens that Samuel Barber, the composer, he went to Curtis, and after he graduated, he wrote this beautiful piece for himself. He also sang. for himself to sing with the Curtis Quartet, and they premiered it at Curtis, and that piece is Dover Beach. And so we named ourselves
I see.
after that piece. Because we share a birthplace with that piece, which is Curtis.
Got it. Okay, I've always wondered why it was
Yes.
because
it's sneaky, but I mean, to be honest, another reason, aside from the connection to Curtis, Dover is easy to say.
It is easy
simple
to say,
and
yes.
short.
You know, I think I've never told you this, but from the conductor's point of view, Dover always is just the Dover Publishing Company.
I can see that. A lot of people ask us if that's why we chose that name.
And so I never. Okay, that's good. I'm glad I asked you this. My mystery has been solved. Tell us about Strings Attached.
Okay, so back in, well, I guess it would have been 2015. We had been touring quite intensely for a couple years by that point, because we did the band competition in 2013. I guess we formed at the cusp of 2008, 2009, so around 2009. In 2013, we won the band competition, and we went in like instantaneously from having maybe 30 concerts in a year to having 150 concerts that year after we won. And so our career was just like immeasurably, like our lives just changed. So we were on the road all the time, and we were, how old would we have been back then? That was 2013, 2014, 2015. Yeah, so we were in our mid-20s, like 25, 24. And everywhere we went, which was a lot of places with 140, 150 concerts, everywhere we went, people would be surprised when they heard that we were classical musicians. Like, oh, we're so young.
Huh.
Or something, right? Like people, and we were like, why is it that there's this kind of stigma, or why is it that there's this assumption of like who should or shouldn't be playing classical music, or who can and can't go to the concerts, and why this is such a huge part of our lives, and it just seems like a normal thing for us.
Right.
For us, like being
because
musicians,
we grew up in it.
We grew up
because we're
exactly.
in this own bubble. Yeah, of course.
So we wanted to create a way to kind of bring the more mainstream audiences, or more, pop culture audiences into our world, and kind of normalize it in a way, and have it make sense, and also just take away this like veneer of how we all must be fancy people if we all play classical music or something like that, right?
Okay.
So we a really, really dear family friend of mine, Bruce Broder, he is a fantastic director, and the last movie I had seen of his before we approached him was this movie called Chops, where he follows a young jazz band. And so we approached him and said, what do you think about making a documentary about a young professional string quartet? And he was all about it. We're so lucky. And in 2016, in the fall, in November, they started following us around, the camera, the sound guy, and they did that for a little over a year. It was very intense, and it was a very long and difficult process, and very expensive. We had a whole Kickstarter campaign, some really generous donors who made it possible, and now it finally is out, and it's at a film festival this week.
Yes. It's a little bit of a trailer from String.
Yeah, there's the trailer.
For these guys. Just kidding. I found them.
Cute.
It's kind of, I watched the documentary last night actually with my husband, and it's so well made. Bruce did such an amazing job of really capturing what our lives are like, and why we stick it out, or why we do it, and why we love it, what's hard about it. But it's hard to watch because it gets personal, and it brings back a lot of emotions of like that whole year when they were filming us. Oh, that's the band competition right there.
Injected with caffeine.
There was no room for us to not be on top of it.
I found that
there's me being tired.
Well, it's not all smiles, but it's
we just haven't had any time to practice. no, I think it's this way.
from the
So it
dressing
seems
rooms
bad,
that
but
that are
there's a worse
uncontrollable.
scenario. The
I can see
Quartetto
that.
Italiano, I believe,
Oh,
the
purple
women in the
hair.
group was married
Mhm.
to each separate male member at one point. So I didn't do that, at least.
Like,
Whoa.
you can't let things get to that point. It's so toxic,
Oh,
not
yeah,
only
there's
for
a
you.
there's a
it's
scene where we
toxic
have a
for
really
like,
intense
me.
talk in
I'm
rehearsal.
Like doing it on purpose.
We can.
Oof.
I want to share where people can find this, which is at Film Music 2020, and it's this week, as you said. So this is
Yes,
very
it's going to be until
exciting.
July 1st, and hopefully it'll pop up in some other festivals. But right now, its premiere right now is at the Martha's Vineyard Film Society Festival, and
How
yeah,
exciting!
so you can still watch it up until the 1st of July.
That's the link to go. Filmmusic2020.event. Eventive.
Eventive. I don't know.
Eventive.org. Wonderful. With my guests on the show, I touch upon current affair, and I want to ask you how the Black Lives Matter means to you and how it influences your musical activities.
Yeah, it's incredibly important to me, and I want as much as I can to help promote, especially being in such a specific field that has so little diversity in its representation, especially just thinking of the composers whose music we play. Going back, there's so many, they're all basically, Mozart, Brahms, Beethoven, Bach, Mendelssohn, all white men. I actually noticed, I asked my husband about this the other day. I was thinking, it never really occurred to me, like even just the fact that I'm a woman, and it just felt normal that all of the music I'm playing is basically by men.
Right.
It never really occurred to me. It just felt normal, and I think it's absolutely the same and worse when it comes to just diversity, racial diversity with composers. And it reminds me, actually, one of the most amazing organizations, the Sphinx organization, I actually would credit with much of my career path. I did the competition when I was 13. I happen to be half Colombian. This competition is to promote, it's now not just a competition. There's a whole performance academy. There's a Sphinx Virtuosi, and it's promoting and creating and generating and supporting and nurturing diversity in classical music. It's if you're eligible to be a part of Sphinx, if you are Hispanic or Black. And the first time I did Sphinx, I was 13 years old. It's the way that I met Sergio Schwartz, who was the teacher through whom I met Michael Klotz, who's the reason I play viola. So that organization creates such incredible opportunities. And this entire week has been really amazing for me because I wish it hadn't had to be virtual, because of the pandemic, but I was on faculty for the Sphinx Performance Academy. And it was all students, all Black and Hispanic students, all week long, intense lessons, master classes. I had studio class with my 4 private students where we would have bonding sessions and support group kind of sessions. And it was just so special. And actually yesterday was the final day, and all the students had their virtual live performances. But yeah, it's absolutely important, and I'm so grateful to be able to be part of an organization like Sphinx to even do a small part to keep this movement going.
Wonderful. And then we had on this website, there is a way to watch some of the performances from the 2020 finals concert. So highly encourage everyone to go to the website and then click on this link where you can see the YouTube video. The other social current affairs that I always talk about is COVID-19. So performing music has become such a routine activity for all of us for so many years. We never had to think about, is there an audience or not? There was always an audience. And it's being able to do that, feeding the energy out from stage to the audience is what makes live performances so important. Then all of a sudden, because of this world crisis, performing in public has become extremely difficult. How has your attitude towards music, but most importantly, performing for an audience, changed because in these couple months?
I mean, I feel starved for it. I really miss it. We've been I've been quarantined here with my husband, and for the first 2.5 months, my brother-in-law was here as well, and he's a violinist, and so we're like some of the luckiest musicians in lockdown because we could play actual chamber music, and we would do live stream concerts, and it was something. It was fun, and we felt we were kind of connecting in a way. But to be honest, it's just that live experience. There's nothing that can replace it. And we know what we started doing. Brendan's not here anymore, but what we started doing was we would go outside on our little patio and play for the neighborhood. And that felt amazing because then we actually had live audience, even if they were just meandering by. A lot of them would stop and listen for a while, and just having that. I mean, what really made me fall in love with music, aside from just the way that it made me feel, was very much a social and an intimacy of connection, that aspect, the human connection aspect. And that's been really difficult in the lockdown. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that. And so it makes me not feel like we're going to come out of the pandemic and not have live concerts or something because everything's changing in the world, right? Like, I think that everyone's really starving for it.
Yeah. So, like, I'm talking to you from Japan, where I couldn't go back home to the US because of flight reductions. But then this last week, the emergency has been lifted, and then I conducted my first concert since the pandemic this week.
What was that
and
like?
I just didn't have words to describe it. To be on stage with an orchestra, we didn't have audience, but this is the first week that audiences are now allowed. So my performance didn't have an audience, but we had 12,000 people watching it live, and they were able to donate money as they watch. It was a free concert, but they can donate. But then also this week was the first time that audience were allowed to come in, so at 50% capacity. And it's a wonderful feeling. I've taken for granted all these years that audience we're always at concerts, and to not be able to have that all of a sudden, and to do the last 3 months of just not making any music, as a conductor, it really it sucks because I need lots of people in front of me. And, we're trying to avoid lots of people, but thankfully, Japan is a very germaphobe country, and everyone's been wearing masks. Wearing the mask has been a thing since the 1940s in this country. So we're very equipped for it. And then social distancing is, people don't like to talk to people here in Japan anyway. Even though it's really claustrophobic, people like to keep a distance. So it's helpful. But it's nice to be able to make music back again. And I just pray for the situation in US, because I keep seeing people not wearing masks, and things are events are happening. I'm just like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. It's not helping. It's not helping. Okay, but when is your next performance coming up?
Well, next performance would be in a few weeks, actually. The quartet and I, we're going to be getting together and joining each other's quarantine bubbles very soon, in order to do some recording, which is going to take place July 10th to 12th. We're going to record some Beethoven, and then right after that, we're going straight to Vail, Colorado, where we were supposed to be playing at the music festival, which basically got canceled. But they're doing this amazing thing, and they're rallying together a very small group of artists to do a socially distant festival. They've even created a mobile concert stage out of a tiny home, so you can drive the stage around from town to town and play outside from a faraway distance. So we're going to be doing that. So I guess our first concert is sometime in the middle of July.
That's really, really awesome. I'm very I'm looking forward to seeing how it all looks, and a lot of organizations definitely can learn from that. So that's wonderful. Excellent. Well, very excited about that. I want to make sure that our viewers know where to follow you and see one of your exciting activities on social media. So, of course, the Dover Quartet, but also people can follow Milena and her Instagram account at that. So please do follow. And Milena, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Nice to
Good.
see
And
you.
nice to see you too. Looking good. And thank you, all the viewers, for commenting. There's lots of applause. And Deborah's been commenting nonstop. So I'm glad that she was very excited
Thank
too.
you.
Well, thank you so much. And stay safe, most importantly. Wear
You too.
masks.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. ありがとうございました。チャンネル登録、いいね、そしてこのビデオをぜひシェアしてください。